18th, and we're here with Reverend Francis Fayden. I did pronounce Fayden right, right?
You did, correct.
Awesome. I should have asked you that backstage.
That's okay.
And I wanted to ask you, you are an interfaith minister.
Correct.
And I wanted you to touch upon that. But before that, when I look at your biography on your website, I can't help to think that this is that your life's been a series of revelations, that you have been guided each step at a time, and that you have you've learned to listen. You've learned to listen to what the guidance is telling you to do. It seems to flow very on paper, and of course, in real life, nothing flows quite as bump free.
Yeah, that's true.
As it looks on paper, but it really does to me seem that how one thing seamlessly led to the other, and your path has put you right here. So before we touch upon what an interfaith minister might be, how did you come to be an interfaith minister?
Well, thank you for that question. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really honored to be here, and hello to everybody. So it's really interesting. The interfaith word has actually evolved into interspiritual. That's what people are calling it now, interspiritual. But I still hold interfaith in my heart. It started for me because I was raised Catholic, and I knew at the time that I was 7 years old that I wanted to be a priest. And I was quickly told you can't do that simply because I was female, which my 7-year-old mind was like, that can't be right, because I could feel that energy of God's guidance so clearly. That it went, for me, it was just this overwhelming love in my heart. And I just wanted to share that. I was like, and so from that point on, I started to question a lot of things. Around 11 or 12, when my life was going through changes, puberty and all of that, I started to study things because I wanted to know what the truth was, because I knew that what I was being told wasn't really true, might have been what other people believed. So I started studying astrology and numerology and past lives, and I just wanted to understand all the mysteries. But when I was 19, I ended up getting sick. And so a lot of my searching kind of took a turn towards healing. And so a lot of my spiritual search at that point was really based on healing. That's when I discovered Louise Hay and You Can Heal Your Life. And I started to understand how the mind was a reflection. I mean, the mind and the emotions were reflected in the body and the symptoms and all of that. And I went down that road. And that's when I became a healer. I went to the Baltimore School of Massage, and I learned how to do something as an extracurricular class called chakra balancing. And the chakras started talking to me, which I never expected would happen. So that whole intuitive side of myself started coming out as I could read people's energy and all that. But that longing in my heart to really be a minister never went away. And so I moved up to New York, was living in New York City, was pursuing the whole singer-songwriter thing. My heart really wasn't in it. And there was a school called the Interfaith, the New Seminary was an interfaith seminary founded by Rabbi Gelberman, by Swami Satchidananda, and I can never remember the third man. He's a Reverend, I think it's Reverend John Mundy. He was a Protestant minister. And that was what opened the door. And I went there and I was like, this is it. So that's the story.
John Mundy is one of the last people who knew all of the key players in the development of A Course in Miracles. And he had his struggle with faith because he found more and more that he wanted to talk about A Course in Miracles, and it wasn't really accepted by his not the Protestant audience, the pulpit. They were willing to listen. They liked the message, but those above,
I could believe it. I could believe it.
I was raised Catholic as well. I went to Catholic school, and I loved Mass. I loved the Latin Mass. It's something very sacred, especially if you get the opportunity to hear it in Latin. But outside of Mass, there seemed to be something lacking in the. Not even lacking. There doesn't seem to be a practice of Christianity.
Yeah.
It's a faith.
I agree with you 100%. It's interesting because there's a strong connection between Catholic mystics and yogis. We're very, very
Mhm.
there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us who grew up one way and gravitate towards because there's something about that devotional energy. And you were talking previously about reading Autobiography of a Yogi. I read Autobiography of a Yogi when I was in college, and then I reread it when I was 36, and I was like, oh my god! It's like I couldn't even believe everything that was in there because it answered so many things I was looking for. And I really feel like Yogananda's energy is so similar to the Christ vibration for me personally.
I agree. Back there, I have a little altar of from the Self Realization Fellowship,
Yeah.
and Christ and Krishna are side by side.
Yep.
Wonderful joining. So you're a reverend, but you more rightly call yourself a mystic, right?
Yeah. So, a mystic, in my opinion, my definition, is anyone who's looking to have a direct experience of the divine, who wants to have that, who wants to really know God, really know the divine, and have it direct, not have to go through anybody else. And so, I love the mystical branch of every tradition. That's kind of where I gravitate. So, there's Catholicism, and then there's the mysticism. Um, there's like Islam, and then there's the Sufis. There's Judaism, and then there's those that study the Kabbalah. And so I'm always gravitating towards. There's the kind of spirituality for the regular person, and then there's those that really want to go deeper, and I tend to gravitate towards those people.
I mentioned quite often that when this was in the 1980s, and I came across Meister Eckhart's quote that if the only prayer one ever says in life is thank you, that would suffice. And I don't know why that grabbed me, um, but I decided to say thank you, thank you, thank you every morning. And of course, I forgot quite a few times. Uh, and I struggled because I spent the 90s heavily drinking in order to, in a very destructive manner. And I struggled, think of anything to be thankful for. Uh, but as I persisted with it, uh, great changes began to happen in my life that I began thinking of things, even mundane things. Well, at least I could take a breath today. At least I have a house. At least whatever. It was always preference with at least.
Yeah.
Um, but as it deepened through the years, it became a very spontaneous practice. I woke up grateful, no reason, just grateful. It's not to be said for a practice. And I love that mystics, most of them, some of them have a divine awakening out of the blue. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you ever read Susan Siegel's book, um, The Collision with the Infinite,
Mm-hmm.
where she had a spontaneous dropping away of herself from the ego,
Mm-hmm.
stepping off of a bus. Uh, but she did not like it. She did not enjoy it. She thought she was going crazy. She spent years in therapy until she came to realize. Um,
Yeah.
but that, I think the practice itself is beautiful. That having a devotional practice of some sort. So, as a mystic, uh, what is your, or do you? Some say you shouldn't seek. Some say if you don't seek, you're not going to find.
Yeah, there are people that say all kinds of things.
This is true.
There's people that will say something for everything. Because there's a school of thought of like rejecting the world, like nothing of this is real. And then there's the school of thought of like all of this is divine. I'm a little bit more of the all of this is divine. I try to do my best to stay out of either or thinking like it's either this or it's this. And I'm always like, why can't it be both? It's one of the things Rabbi Gelberman taught us was never instead of, always in addition to. So we were never rejecting anything. We were always adding things to whatever we were doing and whatever our perception was, which I really love that. So my practice has really changed over the years. It kind of ebbs and flows. I lived in an ashram. I lived in actually a spiritual community based on Yogananda's teachings for like 6 years, and I did that, religiously. And then when I left, I had to let some of that go because it was a little painful for me based on the reasons I had to leave. Um, And then that's when Mother Mary's energy kind of manifested in my life in 2012. And it was the last thing I wanted because I didn't want to have anything to do with, my Catholic upbringing at all. But it's been really healing for me. And so she has been guiding me to be less rigid about things and less like, you got to do a novena for 9 days and it's got to be blah, blah, blah. And she's always drawn me back to my heart. And so I've been incorporating more music, more singing. Gratitude, like you said, is really helpful. And the forgiveness practice is also a really important part of it. Mother Mary gave me the acronym of SOFT, SOFT, which stands for silence, openness, forgiveness, and trust. And those are the four things that, in one form or another, I'm always practicing. But, I love to try all kinds of things. So I've done Buddhist chanting, I've done different things. We're meeting here on Ash Wednesday. So I was just doing a little journaling. I like to do a lot of spiritual journaling. And I was just asking, like, what is my focus? Because I hold the whole Lent thing a little differently than most people. Like, what is my focus? Because Mother Mary has said that you want to think about Easter, you want to think about your miracle or your resurrection or whatever it is that you would really like to experience, and then kind of go back from there. And so if you want to experience something in one area of your life or whatever it might be, on Ash Wednesday, you want to be thinking about, what do I want to let go of, or what do I want to add that's going to help me to be ready? Because she says this is a time of preparation. So I've just been thinking about that. And she's been guiding me towards doing things every day that make me feel joyful. And that's kind of what my guidance is for right now.
As someone who stepped away from your Christian upbringing, and you said that it wasn't the direction you wanted to go. Were you surprised that all of a sudden you're getting messages and your heart is opening up to the presence of Mother Mary?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I was raised in a really Catholic environment, kind of unusual Catholic environment. So my father's side's Irish. My grandmother actually was a nun for 10 years. My grandfather was, I think, in seminary. And for whatever reason, he didn't become a priest. But that energy was really strong on that side. And then on my mom's side, my grandparents are from Italy. And after my grandfather died, he died before I was born. My grandmother kind of turned into a mystic. She kind of turned into she called herself a third order Franciscan. And so I was raised with this, mystical energy, not really understanding any of it. And then my sister's the one that kind of introduced me to astrology and all that. Well, I didn't want to have anything to do with the energy of Mother Mary when I was younger because of the way it was presented to me. It was presented to me of like, you should be like her. Don't question anything. Just let whatever happens just be almost like a doormat. That's kind of what was presented to me. So I was like, I am not interested in this at all. So I pushed it away. But I look back now and I laugh because Mother Mary has always been kind of in the background and guiding me. And I've been like, no, 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 thanks. And she's like, okay, I'll wait. I mean, I had an experience because I do channeling, and I had an experience in like 2002 or so where I would hold this like channeling circle in our home on a Friday night. And one time the energy of Mother Mary came in, and I see with my eyes closed. And so in my mind's eye, I'm seeing it, but every person in the circle saw that. And I just was kind of like, well, that was interesting. Okay, next. But it wasn't until I had gone through that dark night of the soul where I'd left that spiritual community. I was feeling really heartbroken, spiritually heartbroken. And I couldn't meditate. I couldn't do any of the things that really helped me. I just used to sit at my altar and say, please help me, please help me. And I'd listen to music and I would journal, but that's about all I could do. And then I went to go see Amashri Krunamai. I don't know if you've ever seen her. About 9 months later, I went to go see her. She's an Indian saint. And I heard that she would bless people, and I needed to do something. And I had always referred to God as the Divine Mother, but I wasn't thinking Mother Mary specifically. I was much more comfortable with Kuan Yin or Saraswati or any of the other forms of her. So I got this blessing, and Amma said to me, Divine Mother, here's your prayers, and opened my heart back up. And all this anger and frustration and stuff came out. And about 4 weeks after that, that's when Mother Mary started showing up for me. And it was in the summer of 2012 that I experienced what I call a visitation, where I was praying and asking for guidance, and all of a sudden the energy in the room shifted. And I'm an energy practitioner, so I noticed these things, and I could feel there was someone standing behind me. And I didn't dare open my eyes. And I looked in my mind's eye, and it was Mother Mary. Now, she had been showing up in my sessions with my clients because people can show up in your energy field, loved ones and spirit guides. And she kept showing up. And I was like, I guess I just draw people that are connected to Mother Mary. I didn't think that it was my energy. But when she came and she asked to be, all she said was, I want to be on your next call that you're doing, your next event, your next channeling. And I was like, okay. And then boom, she was gone. I had to really come to terms with that because I was like, I'm not Catholic, you know, I'm gay. What am I going to, like, how am I going to explain this to people? Because I didn't want to, if it had been a Martian that had come and said, I'd been much happier. But I needed that healing. I needed to heal whatever that was. And it also has connected me with my ancestors and my lineage. But I've come to know a version of Mother Mary that's completely different than what I was raised with, and how powerful she is. And that I think she's the feminine Christ. So I think the Christ energy is masculine through Jesus and it's feminine through Mother Mary, and that we need both of them. So that's kind of how I've come to that.
I love that. I had a Course in Miracles teacher up several months ago, and she had a spontaneous visit from Mother Mary, and it changed her life, changed the course of her practice. And she had to come to terms with the decidedly masculine language of A Course in Miracles, with the lessons of Mother Mary. And what came to her was that the language in the Course is masculine, but the receptivity is feminine. Mm-hmm. That every word received has the feminine energy. And I love that. And I present to anyone who struggles with the masculine language of the Course, that we don't have to take it that way. That the language is that way, but the message, the receptivity is in itself very, very divinely feminine. And I do want to go into the divine feminine. Are you okay with a couple questions
Sure,
from the chat?
Absolutely.
If somebody hurts you through a marriage rejects you and affects your mental health to almost breakdown, can you still love them?
So if I'm understanding it, if you're in a marriage and someone's rejecting you to the point that you've been really hurt, can you still love them? Is that the question?
I think so. It might be if someone hurts you through a marriage, and then rejects you. So I guess through a marriage and then rejects you, possible divorce or.
Okay. Yeah. So can you still love them? I mean, yeah. But the thing that Mother Mary is always asking us to do, especially for women, is to love ourselves. And so the question would be, what's the most loving thing you can do for yourself first? Because you're not going to be able to love the other person until you've really loved yourself, forgiven yourself, done your own healing. A lot of times people try to hurry up and forgive when they haven't forgiven themselves and they haven't done what they've needed to do. So I'm a personal believer that we do create our own reality. Most of us don't know that we do and how we do. And that at the end of the day, we really need to look at our part in things. But until you're ready to do that, you have to take really good care of yourself and tend to yourself first. And I wouldn't worry about like the other person, whether you're with them or not with them. I would look at myself and what do I need to do to take care of myself first. And I've never been able to forgive anybody until I've forgiven myself, really. And that's what I would say to that. But of course, it's possible.
I love that you use the word tend, just because I really love that word. That we need to be tender with ourselves. We're always, even when it's projected out towards others, it comes because we're always so harsh with ourselves that we're putting all of our judgments, all our grievances and resentments, and we're throwing them out there. And we never do the difficult thing of looking at that, and not just looking at that, but really wanting to heal.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. Because I have that path of having gone to school, been a massage therapist, and gone down that healing road, I used to focus a lot on physical healing back in my early 20s. And even when I was doing my energy work, it was more like helping people understand what was going on, almost like medical intuition. But I came to realize that by the time it's in your body, it's been in your energy for so long. I wanted to help people before that happened. And so that's when I started working more with the emotional side of things. And then that evolved into helping people with their purpose and all of that. I call it helping you create a life that loves you back. But underneath all of that, I think the spiritual path is a healing path. I think success is a healing path. I think relationships are a healing path. I think until we're fully enlightened and awake, there's more healing that needs to happen. So that's just how I hold it.
Um, that opened up to a whole lot of questions in various directions. I want to pinpoint one thing:
Sure.
success as a healing path, or success as a spiritual path.
Hmm.
Because I don't know, most of us don't think of it that way. We're getting ahead in order to get ahead, as a way of keeping score sometimes, as a way of even bypassing a lot of emotional hurt that we've had in life. If I'm
Yeah.
a success, if I make money, if I keep score, if I outscore other people, then I'm going to feel better, and no one's going to judge me again, and I won't judge myself again.
Hmm.
How do we um, transform that into that energy into a spiritual path?
So Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda said that being materially successful is one of the most important things you can do, second only to spiritual awakening, because all of the skills that you need to become enlightened, you also, I mean, to become materially successful, you also need to become awakened. You need focus. You need to be able to concentrate. You need to be able to, really be the master of your energy and your mind and all of that. And those things are the same things that we need, no matter whether we're being a musician or whatever we're doing. So I think it's inherently spiritual. What you're talking about is the underlying intention or reason why somebody's doing it. So we can use something for something that it's not intended. So if we're using our success to mask our low sense of self worth or whatever that is, now we're in the area of like addiction and stuff like that, even if we're not consciously thinking of that. That's why I say success is a healing path, because my take on it is that we come from the field of unconditional love. We're all going to go back to the field of unconditional love. We're here to embody, experience, and express unconditional love. That's my personal belief. And that the universe is always bringing us that love in whatever form. So if we're not successful, there's something that needs to be healed. And usually, like you just said, it's our self concept. It's that we don't feel worthy, that we think we need to do more, or whatever it might be. And your business or your success is never going to fill that thing inside of you. But if you start looking at it more in a healing lens, which is what I do, is like, how can I forgive myself? Or the real thing is like, how can I feel safe enough to be successful at that level? You know? And so whenever I'm doing affirmations, instead of doing an affirmation like, I'm a millionaire, mine is, it's safe for me to be a millionaire. It's safe for me to be wealthy. It's safe for me to be more successful than my best friend or whatever it might be, because all those things are the things that are blocking us.
Um, Big thank you. As you were talking about manifesting and safety to be a millionaire, I just got a $5 super chat. So I
Yay.
want to take thanks. Um, so manifesting as a spiritual path.
Yeah.
Um, and what's your view on manifesting? Is it from the secret that we're just thinking of what we want in a positive way consistently through the day? Or are we using specific techniques to bring about a desired result?
Well, you've been on the path for a while, so you know different people are at different levels, right? People have different levels of awareness and different levels of consciousness. And so in the world of manifestation, it's similar. We have a lot of people who are in different levels. And some people are just coming at it from the perspective of like, how do I get what I want? I want more of what I want. My perspective is we're manifesting all the time. Every single thing in our lives, we've manifested. Good, bad, right or wrong, otherwise. Everything is things that we've manifested. The question is how can we be doing it a little bit more consciously? And what I find in my work with Mother Mary is it's really about, first of all, the first step is really knowing what it is that you're really, I don't even want to use the word wanting, because whenever I say, what do I want? I'm in my mind. I use the word longing. Like, what is it that I'm longing for? Because that drops me into my heart a little bit more, because I find that what you're more emotionally connected to is the thing that you're going to draw to you. So you can mentally say, I want to be a college professor, or I want to be this or that. But in your heart is longing for partnership, or it's longing for something else. That's what you're going to be drawing. And so in my work with people, the coaching that I do with people is unwinding this, because that creates cross currents. Like, I want this, but I'm actually longing for this. And then it creates a sense of stuckness. And so how it's part of the spiritual path is because anything that brings you a level of awareness, to me, is spiritual. So anything that expands your awareness of yourself and of the universe and how things work, anything that's going to do that is a spiritual path. And so you can do manifestation purely from a material point of view, or you can look at it and say, how I like to say it is, how does the universe dance with you? So when I'm working with my clients, it's one of the things we look at is like, I'm trying to teach them how they're wired, how their manifestation actually works, because everybody's a little bit different. And so they'll do whatever the thing is, and they'll come back next week and they'll say, oh, this thing happened. Isn't it a coincidence? I said, it's not a coincidence. That's the universe dancing with you. And so being aware of it is the thing. And so Yogananda says awareness is the key. So as we're expanding our awareness, you can do that through manifestation. You can do it through anything.
I love that you use the word longing. It has a very Sufi poet feel to it. That which you long for longs for you.
Yep.
That connection. And I guess that connection is part of the key for manifesting, right? Because if you think that it's lying outside of you, you're going to be striving for it. And striving's not, would you say striving's not the energy that we want to introduce into manifestation?
No, striving is coming from lack, and it actually creates tension. And so anything that kind of creates tension on the inside, when you have tension, I mean, that's what yoga, my friend, the yoga is all about helping us release that tension so that the energy that's already there flows unimpeded. Well, that is true mentally, physically, emotionally, on all these different levels. And so when you're striving, you're creating that tension, as opposed to being really clear, like, I would love this, and then letting it go and watching how the universe dances with you.
And letting go, another key
Letting
concept,
go. Yep.
right? If you are, I always like using the example of a clenched fist. If I'm clenching my fist against the universe, then I'm keeping it out. But when I open, I'm ready to receive. And it's again, to use the word receptive.
Yeah.
If you were to break it down, I don't want to ask you to put it in a 3-point plan or a 7-point
Okay.
plan. But if you were to break it down for people in the chat who said, okay, I would like to live a life where I'm manifesting success.
Mhm.
Do you have a formula that you would present to people?
Well, the first thing that I do with my own clients is I ask them, what does success look like? And so when people want to work with me, I say at the end of our time together, because I work with people over time, what would success look like? How do you know that you've manifested? Because if they say, I want more success, it's really vague. And so does it look like I've made, I've doubled my income? Does it look like I got a promotion or a raise? Does it look like I published my book and it became a bestseller? Like, what does it look like? And so you want to be clear about it, because your mind is going to talk you out of things that are happening as soon as you start to get clear about it. So if somebody were to say to me, I want to manifest this life of success, I'd be like, great, what does that look like? And so we would get really clear. And it's usually like 3 things or so that they would say that we can focus on in that time. And then what you do is you take a look at what are the things that are contrary to that. Like, why hasn't it happened so far? Like, what would those things be? And that's something that you can do on your own. You can take a look at your life. If you think about manifestation kind of like a garden, right? The subconscious mind is kind of the soil. And you look at your garden and you're like, I have a bunch of tomatoes in my garden. Well, that means that there's a tomato seed that got planted at some point. And that seed is a belief that you have. And so when we look at some things that are in our lives, like for example, if somebody would say to me, like, I really want to be successful, I want to get this promotion at my job, but like I have this really awful boss that always is putting me down. We would take a look at that, like, okay, that's a manifestation right there. What's the belief that would bring that into your life? What would that be? And then we take a look at that. And as people start to shift those beliefs, they plant some different seeds, we start to see different things grow in your life. And so it's not really a step by step, but it's more of an inner process that you can do to take a look at it. But most people honestly have a hard time seeing like where they're stuck. They have a hard time. And like when you were talking about that clenched fist, it's like, what is that about? It's about control. And so in order for us to really allow things to start manifesting for us, we need to be willing to let go of control. Well, then what? It's safe for me to let go of control. It's safe for me to be vulnerable. It's safe for me to be open. And that's the big thing that's holding people back.
Thank you for that. I think that leads nicely to a question. How important is breaking patterns?
Yeah. So anything that's a pattern is in your subconscious mind. And so if it's a pattern that's working for you, great. If you have a pattern, another word for a pattern is a habit. If you have a pattern of getting up every day, praying, meditating, taking care of yourself, doing what feels good is moving you forward, don't mess with that pattern. Don't mess with the pattern. We only want to take a look at patterns when we're noticing that things are happening that are not beneficial for us. So a lot of times relationship patterns will happen. People will have a pattern in a relationship where I'm always dating this kind of person, or I'm always getting this kind of feedback. Anytime you notice a pattern, what's great about it is say, yes, that's a pattern. That means it's in my subconscious mind. I don't have to change what's happening out there. I only need to look at what's going on in me because I'm creating this pattern.
Thank you. This isn't a question, but could you address a comment?
Sure.
A friend said, I want to get on the path, but I'm too violent with moods.
Violent, you said?
Violet. By
Violet?
the
What does that mean?
hold on. Let me I'll spell it out to you because I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. VOLA TILE. Varro.
VOLAT what?
This is where I'm struggling. Let's see. VOLATILE. Volatile.
I guess it's volatile. Okay.
Yeah. Took me a second.
So the question is I want to be on the spiritual path, but I'm too volatile with my emotions. Is that what they said?
With moods. Yeah.
With moods. Yeah. So welcome to the spiritual path. You're already on it. You can't not be on it. We're all on it. Unless you're trying to follow a specific path, like a specific teacher that's going to say whether you can follow them or not. If you're talking about volatile moods like you're hitting people, that's a different story. And then you need to go get some help for that and find out what's going on. But, and you know this, a lot of spiritual practices are to help even out those moods. So the thing that I would recommend for something like that is just start with breathing. You can just do some breathing exercises. If you can sit and breathe, breathing is directly connected to the mind. And rather than trying to control the mind, if you can control your breath, if you can work with your breath, a lot of times things will calm down. There's usually a lot of emotional reasons why we have those kinds of things going on. And it's more than we could probably say in this environment. But A, you're already on the spiritual path. So don't tell yourself you're not worthy or you're not ready. B, pray for help and ask for whatever help you need. see, I would work with my breath, and I would find somebody that I could, work with as a guide, because we're all in the same boat. It's just a matter of where are you in terms of your awareness.
As a breath coach, I fully endorse that message.
Absolutely. That's what I
Thank you for
thought.
that. Um,
What would you add to that
um, Meditation practice,
if you can
um,
do it? Yeah.
if you can do it, because just being aware of what's occurring. And you had that wonderful message from Yogananda that, you know, being aware changes everything. If I'm most of the moods that I've ever been in, I'm unaware that I'm actually in a mood. I'm reacting instead of responding. And if I can calm my central nervous down to the extent where I become responsive, and I'm able to be aware of those shifting patterns, the shifting thoughts, the shifting moods. Um, Now I can respond to them in a creative manner instead of reacting in the same old way. You know, in yoga they call them the samkaras, those emotional imprints that we have.
Yep.
Um, so breathwork, meditation, and I love that you just welcomed our friend Lee on the spiritual path, because who hasn't started when things have been tough, when we're at a low point in our life, when we're divorced or we've lost our job, or uh, I love Wayne Dyer used to say that he was a camel, and when he was asked what's a camel, he said a camel is someone who starts the morning off on their knees, ends the day on their knees, and can go 24 hours without a drink.
Yeah.
Um, and that's such a wonderful saying that if you can wake up and have that gratitude practice, or if you can't meditate, if you can wake up and pray and just say I need help, which is what you did, right? You asked
Absolutely.
for help.
Absolutely. This whole thing of like the spiritual path is some other thing and special people are on it. No, life is a spiritual path. This is it. This is all of us. And so I just really say, Yogananda, I'm going to keep talking about him, but he had a devotee of his who was an alcoholic, and he taught him Kriya Yoga. And they were like, how is he going to be able to do Kriya Yoga, which is a very specific meditation technique for awakening? And he's just like, let me just do it. And so the guy would take a drink, and then he would do one of the Kriya pranayamas. Then he'd take a drink, and then eventually one day the drink fell away, and he was only focused on the. So that's why I say just start doing the spiritual practices now. Don't wait till you're good enough and ready enough. They're there for you to get you ready. You don't have to be good enough.
Um, your description of Yogananda's devotee is exactly how I eventually started drinking.
Yeah, I believe it.
Um, People ask me fairly often, was it difficult for you to quit drinking? And my answer is always no, because I never tried. I was a happy, self destructive drunk.
Yep.
And how else would I destroy myself if I wasn't drinking?
Right.
Um, but I was planting seeds. I was practicing yoga. I was doing the realization fellowship lessons. I was practicing A Course in Miracles. I found a meditation practice that worked for me. Um, and no matter how lapsed that might be, I was planting those seeds. And through really a miraculous event, um, I was given an option. I could continue drinking, and I would see that my life was going to have a tragic end. And if I was fortunate, it would just be mine and it wouldn't involve other people.
Right.
Um, but if I was unfortunate, um, either way, it was going to be tragic. Or I could step into a new life, a life of sobriety. It was a life of mystery. I didn't know what it held. Um, and for whatever reason, because of all those seeds that were planted, I stepped into that new life. And in an instant, it was like every cell in my body went from someone who drank to someone who never even considered having a drink. And it's been almost 27 years, I think, without a drink, and without even thinking about it. Of course, I tell the story often, and we talk with people in recovery and about recovery. But as for me, it's like I was a totally different person from a drinker to a non-drinker, and
Yeah.
it, I don't think it happens that way with everyone, but it certainly can if you're planting those seeds.
Absolutely. Without the spiritual transformation, I don't think it's possible. I think people that just don't drink and they're really dry drunks, yeah, it's like willpower. But when you
Right.
actually have the transformation, whether it's the way that you did it or it's through AA or whatever, that spiritual transformation is what needs to happen.
I believe Bill W. In the big book talked about that we need a spiritual epiphany.
Yep.
Because I did not want to be a drug drunk. I did not want to rely on willpower.
Yep.
Um, I have I was an ultra runner for 11 years, and one of the things that I discovered was sometimes I could finish a race by clenching my teeth, putting my head down, and bowling my way through. Um, but the times I always felt successful, no matter if I finished the race or not, was when I surrendered, when I let go, when I ran with joy.
Mm.
And sometimes I crossed that finish line with a big smile on my face. Sometimes I tapped out, and couldn't quite finish it. But even then, I had a smile on my face because it was doing what I love to do. Um, clenching your fist and grinding your teeth on a life of sobriety is it's certainly not a life of joy, is it?
Mm. Nope, not at all.
Speaking of recovery,
Yeah.
we have a question.
All right.
Uh, when in recovery and living a spiritual life, have you any tips on those times you might get an urge and how to resist?
So you're in recovery for something, and then you're having an urge to do whatever the thing is you're not supposed to do.
How would you
Yeah.
resist?
Well, that's a good question. So I have a background in recovery, but not because of anything that I've done. Like I'm not an alcoholic. I've never drank or anything like that. I tend to fall in love with people that way. So I've been more the Al Anon person. I don't know if I necessarily have the best advice for this. I think if you're in recovery, and you're actively doing your program, getting to a meeting, talking to your sponsor, doing all of that. My thing is also taking a look at what's going on that's making me feel that way. So for me, my recovery shows up more as not taking care of myself. Like if I'm in a pattern of not taking care of myself, or if I'm in a pattern of behavior that's problematic.
We lost audio.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I need to reach out to people that I know and trust that can kind of get me back on that track. So I'm not really the best person to ask about, um, I guess, cravings or whatever that might be.
Uh, it seems to me that um, those who are most successful in recovery, and I don't mean that just by not having a drink or not using a substance, but successful in that they've moved on to a life of meaning and joy, are the ones who approach the 12 steps as an actual spiritual path and not something they have to grind through. I got to get through it. I got to get to that 12th step. And then I can take a breath or start over again. But the spiritual path really and manifestation being one and the same really should be about joy, right? We shouldn't be, we mentioned striving. Don't
Hmm.
strive for that promotion. Don't strive for, doesn't mean not having the intent, but if everything is about pushing and grabbing and hoarding, um, we're not really happy. And can you consider yourself a success?
And all that's coming from lack. It's coming from the I don't have it, which is why I have to do these things, which is why I love that you were talking about gratitude, because when you practice gratitude for things that are not yet in your life, thank you for my new job. I'm so grateful that I'm so appreciated, or whatever it is. It changes the whole thing.
Um, I'm going to ask a question from someone in the chat, but right after, I'm going to put this out because I don't want to forget
Okay.
the difference between that striving, that I want to call it a pointedness almost, and um, heading in the direction of the divine feminine. That it seems to be when we head to that direction of the divine feminine, we're entering a path of softness, a path of where we're receiving. We're not always striving. now we're opening. But this is a question that someone has that, where did that go? Have you ever heard of, this is related to breath, 144,000 cycle of a 12-second breathing, 5 breaths in a minute for 20 days?
Never heard of it. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Never heard of it.
Um,
So I can't speak about it.
so, how does the divine feminine fit into the path of manifestation?
Well, according to the Hindu tradition, all power is feminine. And so they have the three masculine energies of Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva, and then there's the feminine energy of Saraswati and Lakshmi and Durga or Kali, depending upon. She has a lot of different manifestations, and so the masculine energy is like the idea and it's the potential, but it's the feminine energy that brings it into form. So when you say like, well, how is it? It's like there is no manifestation without the feminine. The feminine is. It's like if you think about the sun. The sun shines on all the planets, but there's something about the feminine energy of the earth that receives it in a way, then brings things into manifestation. So the sun is like the masculine energy that's like it's the potential, but it's the feminine energy that actually brings it into being. If that makes sense to you. I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. So we can't separate the two. That we need that intent, and then we need the allowance for it to come into fruition.
mm-hmm. Yeah, everything in manifestation in my mind is a manifestation. Everything is divine mother, the whole thing. So that's why that are don't look at anything in manifestation, only focus on what's beyond it. But I'm like, everything, this is everything. And so they're one and the same.
How do we make that work for us? We lost you again.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. It's in my phone, so it's a little weird. What was the question?
How do we make that work for us?
How do you make
the union of intent and receiving, the divine feminine and the masculine aspect of intent?
So do you mean how do we do it like in terms of manifesting, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, let's go with manifesting.
Okay. So everything that we could ever want, like everything is already created. That's one of the things that I believe is like at the end of my podcast, I always say, your miracle is already here. Magnify your miracle is already here. And so the question then becomes, what do we need to do to be able to receive that? Well, part of it is the clarity. And that's part of that masculine energy of, like I said, being clear about what it is that you are wanting to receive. Like, what is that even? Or what is it that you're wanting to create? And having that sense of like a vision. The masculine approach would be a little bit more like making a plan. The feminine energy would be more of like getting yourself in that vibration. And the question I always ask is like, who do I need to become to have that experience? Because if I could have that experience now, I'd have it already. So who do I need to become without necessarily um, putting myself down for where I am? And the question is usually like the joyful version of myself. Like I just need to be more joyful when I can shift out of my mind and trying to figure it out. And we used to live in Southern California, and I used to go for a walk on the beach, be out on the beach. I would feel so happy. That would put me in a different vibration. And then things would start to manifest for me. So um, I don't know that it says like, formulaic as all of that. I think we're naturally always doing both things.
Um, is there a point where we might lay manifesting aside and say complete trust in Mother Mary to bring us um, all that we need for an abundant and joyful life?
Yeah, absolutely. When I say Mother Mary, I'm that's how I relate to her, but like I said, I think she's the feminine Christ. I think she is the field of unconditional love and she lives within us. So when we're trusting her, we're really trusting that part of ourselves that is the divine feminine, the part of ourselves that is that energy. Most of us have that fist. Most of us are wanting to control things. And so I do think you can get to that point where, I mean, Yogananda did. One of the stories I love about him is he was driving home from Encinitas to LA, and he'd like to stop in this bakery, and they used to have shortbread cookies that he really liked, and he would stop and bring things for the other monks and nuns that were at his ashram. And so he stopped on the way home on a Sunday, and they were all out, and he really had his heart set on it. He stood outside and he looked at this guy. He crossed his arms. He's like, "Divine Mother, why? Why are my cookies not here?" And right at that moment, they ran out. They were like, "Sir, we have one last box of cookies." That's how intimate his relationship was with Divine Mother. Like he just expected, like, "Where are my cookies?" Like, so I think we can get to that place, absolutely. And I do think that it comes to a point where trying to manifest actually needs to fall away because it's going to get in your way ultimately.
Um, but you would consider it a step along
Oh, yeah,
the spiritual path.
absolutely. I think it's an
And
important step.
right, I think probably, yeah, I was going to say a valuable step. Um, Rhonda
Burn?
Burns,
Hmm.
um, her last book, I believe, was sort of about non-duality, where she largely left the secret behind. Not not saying that her previous work was unnecessary
Yeah,
or not valuable, but at a certain point, you really almost have to let everything go.
yeah.
Even
But until you're there, I mean, she's not dealing at this point in her life, she's not dealing with, bills and problems and all of that. I think most of us, all the things that we have in our lives are meant to be guiding us. So whether you have financial issues or health issues or whatever, each one of those can be a path of awakening. Just depends upon how you hold it.
beautiful. Um, and I love be where you are. If right now you're called to manifest, um, and it is the certainly above striving. We can think of it. It's not actually levels, but we could think of it as levels, as an easy way of coming to terms with it. That a wonderful story was the 4 ways to manifest strawberry ice cream, and the first way is when you're sitting on your couch and you go, "I'd love to have a bowl of strawberry ice cream," and you get up. You might even realize you don't have strawberry ice cream. You go to the store, you buy the ice cream, you put it in a bowl, and you sit and you enjoy ice cream. Second way is when you say, "I would love to have a bowl of strawberry ice cream," and your child comes walking by and you said, "Hey, do you mind getting me a bowl of strawberry ice cream?" And they say, "Sure, I'd love to. And I'll even have one with you." It's a little bit higher because there's a little less effort. And then the third way is the way of synchronicity. When you have that thought, "I'd love to have a bowl of strawberry ice cream," and your child walks by and says, "Hey, I'm about to have a bowl of strawberry ice cream. Would you like it? Would you like one too?" Very, very higher level, higher vibration because it's all done guided synchronicity. And then the last way, the way of Yogananda, is you say, "I'd love to have a bowl of strawberry ice cream. Divine Mother, can you help me out?" And you have a bowl of strawberry ice cream in your hand. I don't know anyone who's reached that level of manifesting, you know, loaves and fishes, loaves and strawberry ice cream. Um, but I know lots of people who have progressed to that point of uh, everything is synchronized, where everything is gifted to them. And you go through life just, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, those are the people that they just live in that vibration. Absolutely. That's where we're all headed.
Um, so speaking of vibrations, what are the ways that we can raise our vibrations to that higher level?
So when I talk to people about vibration, because I do work with people with energy and with the chakras and everything. I try to break it down really simply, and the simplest way is feeling good and feeling bad, right? So things that make you feel bad are the things that lower your vibration. Things that make you feel good are the things that tend to raise your vibration. Once you have that mastered and you're clear about like watching the news kind of lowers my vibration, it makes me cranky or irritable or whatever. But like going for a walk or whatever it might be, brings me to that place of peacefulness. Once you're clear about those things, then you can start to refine that a little bit. And when you're talking about raising your vibration, the thing that you teach really, I think, is one of the key things is that forgiveness and having a daily forgiveness practice where no matter what's happened in the day, you let it go. So Mother Mary has often said to me to tell people that at the end of the day, whatever's happened, just put it at her feet, meaning you're just letting it go and just be like, here's everything that happened. Here you go. Whether it worked out or it didn't work out. And here's everything that didn't happen that I wished would happen that and you just let it go. And what you're doing is you're relieving yourself of all the unfinished energy and all the expectations and everything, and you let it go. And that's one of the ways to have a really restful sleep. But it's a really good practice to just like let go of the outcome. Speaking of Arjuna and Krishna, it's like letting go of the outcome of like, I don't know. My mind is telling me, I didn't get this done, but maybe that's exactly what was supposed to happen. We don't know. So getting into that place of letting go, I think is one of the best things you can do to raise your vibration. Other things are like walking in nature, eating really good food, spending time with people that you love. I mean, it's all kind of doing the breathing exercises. There's many things that you can do, but I think the emotional piece is the biggest piece.
Thank you for that. And that is the forgiveness that you were talking about, very, very similar to practicing A Course in Miracles, where we don't forgive. That's beyond the human scope, which is why Shakespeare said, the ear is human to forgive divine. Um, but we have something within us, the Holy Spirit or Mother Mary, that everything's doesn't even know the way of forgiveness because there's no judgment. There's nothing but unconditional love and support.
Exactly.
So we give it to Mother Mary. We give it to Krishna. We give it to Jesus or the Holy Spirit. Um, and we literally say, I can't do this. I can't let go of this, but you can. Um,
Exactly.
a friend that has a question,
Certainly.
advice.
Okay.
Um, I made an acid wash T-shirt by using bleach on a pink T-shirt. Though I love the dragons and the random little swirl, um, I did made a perfect dragon with an eye and smoke coming out of its nose. Is it a sign?
It's a sign. If you think it's a sign, in
Um,
my mind, anything that catches your attention is a sign. So if we live in this world and this world is a hologram, right? Everything could mean something. Everything does mean something. But what's the thing that catches your attention? So if you're making these t-shirts and they all have like, whatever designs on them, and then all of a sudden you're looking, you're like, oh my God, that's a dragon. You noticed it. If you noticed it, it's yours to notice. It is a sign. That's what I think.
one of the reasons why I love that question and wanted to ask it was because I saw on your um, webpage that you were doing a fire horse meditation, and
Hmm.
I'm unfamiliar with the term fire horse. But dragon made me think fire horse, and I thought, what a great way to
Yeah.
because you had a question and you gave a wonderful answer, and then it was a great way for me to ask you fire horse and fire horse meditation.
Yeah, so yesterday was a really powerful day. So today's Ash Wednesday. Yesterday was Mardi Gras. It was the eclipse. It's the first day of Ramadan, and it was Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year. So the Lunar New Year, this is the year of the fire horse. So every year, they have a different animal. and it's a horse, but they also combine it with the elements. And so it hasn't been a fire horse since 1966. So I did a meditation that was an activation because in Shambhala Buddhism, I recently discovered that one of the symbols of what they call the Holy Spirit is a winged horse. And I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. There's this fire horse energy, and I work with Holy Spirit energy. So let's do this meditation and activation for that. So that's what that was about.
Okay. I I loved. I didn't know what it was, but when I saw it, I thought, "Ooh, I like I like this. I like that." And when our friend Lee brought up the or Phil, he brought up the dragon.
Yeah.
I thought,
I would say his personal dragon is trying to say hi to him, is what I would say.
do you work with archetypes and symbolism in any way?
I love symbolism. I love all of it. I can't say that I know all of it, but one of the things I do when I work with people is I look to see not only what their sacred life purpose is, but what their archetypes are, and they're things that that's not based on anybody else's teaching. It's things that their energy field tells me. But yeah, archetypes. I work with the angels a lot. I've learned a little bit about dragons. Dragons are fascinating to me, and yeah, I love all of it. Like I said, I feel like everything's talking to us.
Right. Speaking of talking to us, I also saw on your webpage that you refer to your work with clients and Mother Mary as basically a three-way conversation. What what role do you play in that three-way conversation? And then when you're done, what role does Mother Mary play?
So when I'm working with people, I'm usually working with people who want to experience something or manifest something, their purpose or whatever it is. And so I take the work that I've done in the past, which was before I was working with Mother Mary, which is reading people's energies and looking at their chakras. And so everything we need to know about ourselves is actually in that system. Each one is a different level or a different aspect of ourselves. So part of what I'm doing is I'm intuitively dialoguing with your energy. So I'm talking to your energy. Your energy is going to tell me about what's going on with you physically, mentally, emotionally, all the different levels. And then if we're looking at it through the lens of purpose, it's going to be talking to me about that, of like what your body came here, what you came here to embody, experience, and express. That's kind of what I love helping people with. And it's usually like one word, like joy or something like that. And so I'm going to be talking to you, and I'm going to be listening, and I'm translating all of that. And then I'm also looking to see, like, do you have other spirit guides that you work with, angels and all that kind of thing? Sometimes loved ones will come through. So I'm kind of acting a little bit as a channel then. And then Mother Mary's energy always comes through because she's always guiding me. And the way that I like to describe this, and you'll probably appreciate that, is like we can take care of our own energy to a certain extent, just kind of like we take care of our teeth, we brush our teeth. But then we go to the dentist, and the dentist can see things that like we can't see. And that's kind of how I am when I look at people's energies. Like I can see things that people can't see. But then the dentist takes an x-ray and sees things that nobody can see, and that's Mother Mary. Like Mother Mary can see things none of us can see, and she gives a really high perspective on what's going on with you. And so I'm basically acting as a translator and passing on that information to the person and letting them know, like, this is what she's saying, this is what it sounds like. So I'm kind of in this role of like, I'm coaching people, I'm doing energy work with people, and then I'm channeling and giving that information, and it all kind of happens at the same time.
Is Mother Mary is it advice or is it more of an overall direction to go? Is it
It depends upon the
specific?
person and what they're looking for. Sometimes the person is coming to ask for a specific thing. Like for example, your friend with the dragon might come and be like, what's with the dragon? And so I would say, oh, this is what I know about a dragon. But then Mother Mary might come in and say something completely different that I have no idea what it is. And it could have something to do with what's going on with you physically, mentally, emotionally. It just really depends on the circumstance. She can get very, very specific. But the one thing I've noticed about channeling her energy as opposed to any of the other beings that I channel is that she's very much about free will. She doesn't really like to tell people what to do. She likes to guide you, but she wants you to kind of take ownership of it. as opposed to when I've channeled Mary Magdalene and she's just like, do this. She's very like, here's what you need to do. So it's a different energy.
Um, I think maybe, or sometimes I think that Mary Magdalene might be the patron guide of my live streams. She comes up pretty often, uh,
Wouldn't be
and
surprised.
we have strong feelings uh, for her. Very often, that we talk about her actually just being the feminine Christ, the feminine energy of Christ, and that she was as enlightened as Jesus, but not quite as appreciated as Jesus in uh, through the years.
Yeah. She's amazing. I love her because whenever I experience her energy, she always comes in kind of this deep red and gold vibration, and she's so much about embodying divinity, being in your body and being fully awakened and divine, and very much about empowerment. The thing I love about her, especially as a woman, is that she embodies for us not caring what other people think about you, not caring at all about other people's opinions, owning your truth no matter what. And I love that because it can be so challenging to do that.
Fearless. That's the message that I get from from Mary Magdalene. Um, I'm trying to find the best way to head in this direction when we're thinking of that fearlessness in Mary Magdalene, and we're thinking of more people that I know and have heard of are having encounters with Mother Mary or other aspects of the divine feminine. It seems like this is the time.
Mhm. Like this time right now, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever read the book The Way of the Rose?
No, but I have it. Well, I have it on Kindle, and Peter DeFinn is going to come up along with Clark Strand. I loved his book, Waking in the Dark. Uh,
Yeah, Waking Up
they're
to the
going to
Dark.
be up April 7th,
Yeah,
and
I've had them on my podcast. You'll love them. They're awesome. But one of the things that they talk about is how the rise in what's it called? Greenhouse gases, or the rise in the CO2 that's happened since the industrial era totally corresponds to the rise in apparitions happening. That as we started to burn more fossil fuel and create more carbon dioxide, her apparitions have increased, which I think is fascinating. So people sometimes will say to me like, "Oh, you channel Mother Mary, like you must be so special." And I'm like, no, I think it's unusual if you don't channel Mary because she's so available to all of us. I mean, she's just knocking on all of our doors between Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. And it's that divine feminine that is making itself known because I think it's trying to bring some healing and some balance to this hyper masculine toxic energy that we have right now that's been here for a long time. And I think it's on its way out, but it is kicking and screaming on the way out.
um, that's a loaded expression, isn't it? Toxic masculinity, because people, um, particularly men, they get very offended hearing that, as if masculinity is being put down, but that's far from it. So we don't just want an awakening of the divine feminine; we want an awakening of the sacred masculinity. That's true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that, I don't know how motivated men are in general. I think men like you and like Clark, you were talking about Clark Strand, give me a lot of hope. People that
Thank
live
you.
in an open heart. Because in order for that sacred masculine, I think, to really awaken, the heart needs to be open. And we have a lot of things in our society that tell us not to do that, especially for men, like it's a bad thing. But I think it's actually happening more and more and more. And those that are not this way are the ones that are really loud right now. But it's a system that's dying. This old patriarchy system, it's dying. And I'm convinced that it's going to be helpful for men as well as for women to not have that construct on us that divorces us from essential parts of who we are.
I love that you use the word construct because it really is totally made up, isn't it?
It's totally made up.
But we bought into it
Oh, yeah. And
forever.
it helps that they rewrote everything to make God have masculine pronouns. But as long as you think that the divine is one or the other, you miss the whole thing. And that's one of the reasons in my work it's so important for women to have some sort of connection with the divine that looks like them, that sounds like them, because we don't have that in any of the traditional religions.
I sometimes think that the whole tortured artist is because, particularly the male artist, touches base with the sacred feminine um, as they're being creative,
Mm,
and when they step away from it, they step back into that toxic masculinity. They step away from that connection of the divine feminine and divine masculine coming together in that work of art, and they're split again, and
yeah,
it's hard to handle.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot that, what's her name? The Eat, Pray, Love lady. She talked about that there was a time where creativity was not something that was like you identified with. It was something that you connected with. Like you had your muse, and your muse would come, but it wasn't about you. And then when a lot of the emphasis became about like me and my creativity, like the ego got a hold of it, and that's when we started seeing some of this craziness, like tortured artist energy. Liz
Right.
Gilbert, that's her name.
Um, can you talk a bit, touch a little bit on the ego?
Yeah. So, what would you like to know about the ego?
Um, what is the ego? Is it something that we need to get rid of?
Well, in my understanding, the ego is that part of us that helps us navigate the world. It's the part of us that sees things as separate. So, I can I can talk to you on my phone because I don't think I'm the phone. I'm not going to run into the phone because my ego is the thing that's telling me this is different than that. This is different than that. And so it serves a function for us to be able to navigate in the world. But the problem is that it makes us believe that what we're seeing as separate actually is separate, instead of that sense of oneness and knowing that we're all connected. It shows up the most in making us feel disconnected from the divine. And so because of that, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of control and all of that that goes along with the ego. So I'm not big on anything about getting rid of the ego, killing the ego. Like that to me, you know, it's a healing path. The spirituality is a healing path.
Right.
Just like alcohol, when you're ready, it will drop away. It'll just drop away. I don't think we have to worry about it.
The ego loves a mission. So to give the ego the mission of destroying the ego keeps us perpetual seekers and searchers. We got that
Exactly.
the spiritual carrot on a stick in front of us
Exactly.
forever and ever.
Exactly. So that's why I think, don't worry about the ego. I mean, some people, everyone's in a different place. And so you gotta be honest with yourself about where you are. But I think for most people, if you keep focusing on the highest energy that you can focus on, at one point it'll fall away. Um and until then, we have to keep tending ourselves and taking care of ourselves. But I'm not big on the let's kill the ego thing.
Right. Of course, Miracles focuses very much on the ego, but not as something to destroy or even attempt to get rid of, but as something to see through. And as you said, realize that um, its purpose is to present us with a sense of separation. And in the world of form, in the world where I do not want to walk directly into my phone, where I don't want to bump into people because we're all one, um, it's good to have that sense, but we don't necessarily have to believe it.
Yeah,
Knowing that
absolutely.
what's the great was it Pierre Teilhard de
Oh,
Chardin?
mhm.
Yeah, I'm not a spirit. I'm not a human being having an occasional spiritual experience. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also said, if you knew how much you were loved, you would die for joy, or something like that. I love his quotes.
Me too. We have a friend in the chat that, when you were talking about the ego, said, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense," and that's where they're stuck at. So thank you for offering that.
You're welcome.
We have a question about your channeling. Mary lived in the first century Jewish context. How does shape her phrasing when she speaks through you? Does she speak Aramaic?
Does she
How do you
speak
receive?
Aramaic? She doesn't speak Aramaic to me. Sometimes when I'm working with, like, sometimes if I'm doing a group channeling, sometimes she does. Sometimes she'll put her hands on top of somebody's head and I'm just kind of guiding the process along. And sometimes she does speak in Aramaic and I don't know what she's saying. I can hear it, but I don't speak Aramaic, so I don't really know. And it's usually something that's private anyway. But I've had her show up for clients of mine who are Mexican and she starts speaking Spanish. I have to tell her, I don't speak Spanish. Can you please speak so that I can hear you? The one thing that I will say about Mother Mary that I always listen for when people say that they channel her is she never uses contractions. So whenever I hear somebody channeling her and they're saying won't or can't, or I'm like, she doesn't speak that way. She always says cannot, shall not. And sometimes she uses really antiquated words. I don't even know what they mean. But yeah, it's a great question.
Um, so backtracking a little bit to that um, advent of a great divine feminine awakening in the world.
Hmm.
We each have a role to play in that, right?
Hmm.
How do we individually and then collectively step up?
Well, when you say step up, what do you mean by that?
Um, so I view the world as you and I were talking about, that what we see simply can't continue.
Mhm.
We've reached that tipping point, the 100th monkey. Uh, Things are rapidly changing. I would love for things to I'd love for things to change, but I'm hoping for a change in consciousness and not a any type of actual revolution. Um, that
Mhm.
I'd love to see things unfold on a level of consciousness and not at a level of violence. Um, and so, as individuals, what role do we play in bringing that to fruition?
Well, I'll give you my take on it, and then why don't we ask her? Would you like to do that? We can just ask
Yes,
her.
very much.
Um, so I've been struggling with all of this for a while. Um, and I'm just to be completely transparent with everybody so everybody understands, I am not at all neutral about what's going on in the world. I am not at all neutral about who is in the White House. I just want to be really clear about that. As an interfaith minister, I honor everybody. And so I never tell people what to do or what to believe. But for me personally, I find him to be very triggering. Um, and very difficult. It's a very difficult energy. For me, it feels like being in an abusive relationship to be an American right now. So I'm just going to be honest about my personal thing on it. That being said, what Mother Mary has shared with me is this energy is an ancient energy. It's a really ancient energy. So a lot of people have been talking about World War II and Nazi Germany and like all these references, which I understand completely. But she has said to me, go back further. It's an older energy. And what she showed me is that, speaking of archetypes, we were talking about archetypes before, right? It's the archetype of King Herod. So if you remember King Herod is the insecure king who wasn't 100% sure he had a legitimate right to be king. He was kind of like half Jewish and he was in cahoots with the Romans. And he was really ambitious and really insecure, and to the point of killing two of his own children who had claim to his throne. And he's the one, we meet him in the story with Mother Mary and with Jesus when the three kings are coming, or the three wise ones are coming, and they meet with Herod and they let them know about this new king that's being born. And he gets all freaked out about it. And then they find Jesus and they go home a different way. That archetype of the insecure leader who will do anything to hold on to power. So what happens after that part of the story is King Herod makes the declaration, all male children under the age of 2 slaughtered. That's the energy that we're seeing right now on the planet. And it's not just happening in this country, there's other countries where this energy is happening. And Mother Mary has said, recognize the archetype for what it is, but always remember this archetype only comes when the Christ energy is here, when the Christ energy is on the rise. And that's the energy of unconditional love. That's the energy of awakening. That's the energy of goodness. That energy is on the rise. And so King Herod starts to freak out and starts to get louder. So we have these certain personalities on the planet right now who are insecure leaders, who are doing everything they can to hold on to power because the energy is shifting away from those powers because the Christ energy is the one that's actually rising. So Mother Mary is comforting me by saying, keep your eyes on the Christ. Remember that. Now, in terms of us personally, I think we're each personally responsible for what are we willing to tolerate. I have my best friends live in Minneapolis, and they're helping their neighbors who are struggling, who their husband got taken away and they're afraid their children are going to, all this fear that's going on. What can we do? It's an individual thing. I don't know that any of us can say, I can't tell you what you should do. But the one thing I will say is what we need to not do is pretend it's not happening. And I think we all need to figure out for ourselves where is our own line of what we can do. Because if we think about it, Mother Mary and the Holy Family, they left the Holy Land because it wasn't safe for them. So you have to be mindful of where is that level of safety for myself? Am I willing to put myself in a place of doing something or not? And if no matter what I'm called to do, my job is to hold that higher and stay focused on that Christ energy. And if I am called to help somebody, to help my neighbor, to go ahead and do that. So that's what I have to say about that. Do you have any questions about any of that?
When you said, see the Christ, hold to the Christ, felt very personal to me. As a student of A Course in Miracles, I am always called to not focus on the humanness, but to see the Christ within another, including those leaders that make it all but impossible to see the Christ.
Yeah.
Probably especially them.
Yeah.
They are my my biggest lesson. They are my
Absolutely.
and when you get that, when you heal the archetype, you might heal everything, right?
Well, for those of us who follow the path of Christ, it's not an easy path. I mean, let's face it, he had to hold that truth about everybody, even when horrible things were happening to him. But that's what made it so that he was able to come out the other side of it completely transformed. It's not easy to hold that energy, but that I do think that's what we're asked to do, and not in a spiritual bypassing way, not in a la la la, everybody's Christ, let me just, but to really do it, it means facing that energy within ourselves. I think it was Mother Teresa that said that one of the things that propelled her forward is she was around during that World War II time, and she's like, I saw the Hitler in me. And that's when I said, I really need to make some changes because that energy is in me. And so that's the part where we can take responsibility for it of like, what in me is afraid of losing control? What in me is willing to do things at all odds? And we might not think that we are. Um, so I think there's inner work and there's spiritual work. And then there's also the outer work of whatever you feel like you need to do as an activist and boycott things and not participate in all of that. I'm not a fan of the word resistance because I think what we resist persists. So I'm not in that place of resistance. I look at I'm taking my energy away from something and I'm putting it on, like I'm going to shop in a store that supports me instead of boycotting a store that doesn't.
Another story of Mother Teresa, when she was asked if she would lead a protest during the Vietnam War. And she said no, which shocked a lot of people because aren't you anti-violent, anti-war? And she said, no, I'm not anti anything. I will not lend my energy to, as you said, what I resist persist. But if you have a March for Peace, I will gladly join it.
Yeah. That's why I loved those monks that were doing the walk. I was so grateful. And my thought was like, why is every spiritual leader not doing this? Like, here they are, these Tibetan monks. But I was so grateful that they did it. It was so needed just to see somebody embodying that peace vibration.
Right. So we have a time when even some of our spiritual leaders seem to have fallen, um, making it maybe a little more difficult to see the Christ in people that taught us how to see the Christ within another. Um, I always love the word impeccable, that we're called to be impeccable on our path, which doesn't mean that we don't occasionally waver or even fall, but we step back on. And I think that calls for a certain amount of openness, admitting I've fallen, I've strayed, that I have not been as impeccable as I should be. Um, but let me show you what a leader really does, which is I step right back on the path and um, make amends
If they do,
if they do.
we'll see
Right.
if they do.
Um,
I haven't seen anybody doing that so far, so we'll see. We'll
you know
see. But
what?
yeah.
I the whole the whole of things coming to the surface. You're right. I have not seen one person make amends.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I learned when I was living in the spiritual ashram, which I thought was really helpful to understand, because we can again be very black and white. Either you're spiritual or you're not. Like you're either there or you've made a mistake and that's it. And it's very like black and white in how we approach things. But one of the things I learned was that as you're growing, your tendencies are growing with you. And it takes a while before some of these things fall. So this is why you can have a teacher that can be pretty high up there, and they, whatever their ego thing is still there with them until that ego drops. None of us are 100% there. And I think it's important not to put anybody on a pedestal, and to really be discerning.
Do you think the age of guru is over? That it's time now for us to step up as our guru?
I think if we had real gurus, it would be different. I think here in the West, I don't think we have real ones. I think we have people that we put on pedestals, but like the Yogananda energy, like somebody who's actually God realized. I don't know if there's any here in the United States anyway, anybody in the West that is that way. I do think um, I think that looking outside of ourselves, it's the end of the Piscean age. I think that that is falling away, of looking for somebody to rescue us, looking for somebody to do it for us, looking for somebody to save us. I think that energy is falling away. I think we're coming back to a very different energy than that.
Um, and I like that. Thank you. So one last question, and this concerns channeling and money. Is channeling a divine energy something one should do for money?
Is channeling a divine energy? Um, yeah, but what isn't a divine energy? So I'm of the mindset of everything is God, everything is divine, you know. It depends upon your tradition. If you're from a tradition and you have a teacher and a lineage that has taught you a certain way and you've taken a vow a certain way, I think you need to honor that. Absolutely. But we live in a culture that's very different when it comes to spirituality. If we were in a different time and we were in a different culture, like one of my spiritual teachers in the past, her father and her grandfather and her great grandfather were like the spiritual teachers in their community, and the community supported them completely. So like when she got married, the whole community came and like paid for her wedding dress and the whole thing. She was living in India because they lived in a community where we take care of our teacher and our teacher takes care of us. We don't have that here. We don't have that energy of like, I'm going to take care of my spiritual teacher. So a lot of people that do spiritual work have to support themselves somehow. Otherwise, they have to go do something else. I know for me personally, it's something I struggled with for a long time. But for me to be the best version of myself that I can be and take really good care of myself so that I can channel the highest energy, it's better for me to not have a separate job, and that's me. For other people, it might be totally different. So I don't see anything wrong with anything. It all depends upon your energy and your intention and where you're coming from.
I very much appreciate that answer because my YouTube channel is my rice bowl.
Mhm.
It is that this is I've sort of made a declaration of this is where I will earn an income, doing what I absolutely love to do, what I've always wanted to do. I found myself in a position after I was a caregiver um, for my mom with my dad through a long decline with dementia. And then after my divorce, my father said, "Well, I'm going to need a caregiver." He was in his 80s, um, good health overall, but he was starting to decline. And I stepped into that role. And then I was his end of life caregiver with um, heart disease.
Yeah.
Um, and when he passed away, this was in 2021, I was bereft of not just losing the central figure of my life that meant everything, but my role. I was a caregiver for almost, at that point, almost 2 decades. Um, and I had my own business as a personal trainer where I cared for people. But during COVID, I shut the business down because I didn't want to bring anything home for my dad, not even a cold, because with congestive heart failure,
Yeah.
even a cold would send him in the hospital.
Yeah.
Um, and when I meditated and I prayed and I asked, "So what should I do now?" I had a very clear voice saying, "Continue being a caregiver, but now care for everyone."
Yeah. So sweet.
Thank you. And that's how my channel came to be. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Um, and I've had people ask me that same question. That um, so you're a professional Course in Miracles teacher, and I always joke about it and say, yes, that means that I can no longer compete in the Olympics
Right.
of Course in Miracles. I'm no
Right.
longer an amateur. I am now a professional. Um, but the message for me is that God does not want me to be hungry. That I am not a better servant suffering than I would be a better servant being joyful.
Yeah. I had this conversation with Mother Mary a long time ago because I was like, am I supposed to start a church? Like, what am I supposed to do? And she was like, well, that would be easier to, let other people determine your worth. I'm like, because for me, in my karma in this lifetime is for me to own that for myself. It's like I really need to own my worth. I really need to take care of myself. I've had so many lifetimes of being in monasteries that this lifetime is for me to do something different. That might not be true for other people. That's why I don't judge anybody in terms of what they're doing. But you can feel the energy behind things with people. You can feel the energy of somebody who is really in their ego, or and not that they're right or wrong, but like just be discerning. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. It doesn't make somebody holy because they're not charging money. They can still be doing all kinds of things.
Right. So thank you for that message. Um, as we wrap things up,
Yeah.
speaking of message,
Mhm.
is there a message you or maybe Mother Mary?
Let's see if
Uh,
Mother Mary wants to share anything. How about we do that?
yes.
I'll ask her for it. So the first thing I see with Mother Mary is she's putting her hands on your head, my friend, putting her hands right on your head and putting her left hand on your heart. And she's thanking you for your service. And she's thanking you for all the lives that you touch that you don't even know that you touch. She's thanking you for carrying the message of A Course in Miracles and making it accessible to people. She's thanking you for turning your life and your heart over to the divine at the way that you have. She's wanting me to tell you that she hears your prayers and that she's always with you. And she's also saying that, you've been going through a challenging time. Things are getting better. Things are turning. But the most important thing is to not take things personally. This is a message for everybody. With everything that's going on the planet right now, we have to do what we can do, but we have to protect our peace. We have to protect our serenity. What you're called to do, let yourself do it. But just like Mother Mary, she's like, whatever you need to do to protect your heart. Our hearts are really tender right now. It's really important for all of us to not get pulled into the King Herod energy, to not get pulled into that energy. We need to do what we need to do to take care of ourselves. And that's what will help us, whether we're looking at manifesting or whatever it would be, is to just really tend to our hearts and not get pulled down into the negative energy. That's what she wanted to say.
Thank you.
Well,
Needed to hear that on every level. I needed to hear that because I do get pulled down in that energy. Um, the course asks us to be above the battleground, but that's metaphorically, meaning that keep your heart in that Christ energy. Uh, but maybe your boots need to be on the ground holding a sign. Maybe not. Uh, but allow yourself to be guided and then honor that. But the message to me was heart sent.
so glad. She's just
Um,
really appreciating you.
Thank you. Would you consider a return appearance and hanging out?
Absolutely. It would be fun.
I'd love to talk to you after I talk with Perdita and Clark.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
Um, and I'm going to dig out my Kindle and revisit the book.
Yeah, it's really good. I think I have it. I have it on Kindle. I have the hardback, and I've also bought the audiobook because I love their voices so much. And they're such good storytellers. I like hearing it. So I hope that you enjoy it. It's a great book to be reading during Lent, I think. Awesome.
Thank you. Before we go, can you tell everyone uh, what you offer, how they
Sure.
can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to my website, which is my name, francisfayden.com, and Francis is spelled with an E. And right on there on the homepage, you will see that I have an MP3, Manifest Your Heart's Desire with Mother Mary. It's a guided meditation that I did on the 8-8 Lions Gate, and it's a really powerful one to help you manifest whatever that is. And so that's a free thing you can have. You can tune into my podcast, which comes out every Wednesday. It's the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. And if anybody is looking for some coaching, some mentoring, if you want to learn a little bit more how you can work with me, you can go to francisfayden.com/miracle meeting, and you can have set up an appointment with me about helping you with your manifestation or whatever else it might be. So those are some ways that you can connect with me.
And a beautiful YouTube channel.
And my YouTube channel, absolutely. You can get on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rev Francis Fayden. And like I said, I'm my podcast comes out there on Wednesdays, and I do some live streams. I don't do them as often as you, but I do some live streams, and yeah, it'd be lovely to have people come over.
I watched not long ago, maybe a few days ago, YouTube short where you were saying, "Don't work for a life. Uh, don't work for a life." I'm trying to think of the exactly how you said it. Don't work for a life to have a life that works for you.
For you, yeah.
And I absolutely love that because, as we mentioned earlier in the stream, that if you're working so hard to have that life to the point where you actually don't have a life and you have no joy in what you're doing because you think there's something that comes afterwards, you're missing the whole point of life itself. Have a life
Yeah.
that works for you.
Well, that's the thing I like to say is we spend so much time in the world of manifestation of trying to create a life that we love. And I say, create a life that loves you back. Create a life that loves you back. And it just flips everything around of like, oh, yeah, I have to include myself in my life. I want to make sure this works for me. Absolutely.
Um, and Francis is there to help you, that have a life that works for you, a life that you love.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys. I will be back at 5:25.